You are listening to TosCast number 5. This is another TosCast in a series of podcasts between myself, Total OS Today from the United States, and my good friend from Australia, Infinitely Galactic. Now, if you haven't already, please check out TosCasts 1 through 4. And also, please check out the Infinitely Galactic channel here on YouTube featuring the Linux desktop. And if you need more information, you can always check out the Total OS Today website, which is totalostoday.blogspot.com. At this moment, I would like to transfer the microphone to my good friend, Infinitely Galactic.
Always a pleasure to be on the show, and so I mean we've got some interesting topics lined up. Especially there's been so much happening just in the last month and a half really since we did the last TosCast, and there's been so much going on in the news that we're just going to talk about some of the news items that are of interest to us. And I mean, there's certainly been some interesting rumblings in a lot of big companies. There's been some really big moves just in the last couple of months, and then also hopefully we'll answer a number of viewer questions that that Total OS Today has received via his YouTube comments or his website. So I mean, do you want to kick us off? What's been one of the major news items that has caught your
Yeah.
attention?
Well, I think one of the big ones, if not the biggest one, was the announcement that Steve Jobs had to step down as the CEO due to, I would imagine, health reasons. I don't think he entirely quit from the news reports that I saw. He's still part of Apple, but not fully functional as the CEO. I think in one of the previous uh, Toscasts, you had called him Captain Apple, somewhat affectionately. Um, I think I did a brief video on the Toss Today channel, and I really called Steve Jobs really a living legend, in my opinion. I mean, I am primarily a Windows/Linux user. I only have one Apple uh, product that I use, but what can I say about Steve Jobs? A visionary, a futurist. He has and had his finger on the pulse of the consumer market and knowing what people would want as part of their, technology lives. But
Yeah,
it's no surprise.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he had been fighting, I would imagine, some form of cancer. I can't recall exactly what it was. And he did look over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. Years. He did look kind of, thin and somewhat frail. But it's perfectly understandable that he had to step down. Interestingly, I was listening to a radio news report that supposedly the story goes that Steve Jobs had the idea for the iPad first before the iPhone, but he felt that market timing or market conditions the timing would dictate to release an iPhone before the iPad. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true, but if it is true, I thought it was a brilliant move because still the iPhone is still probably the number one selling smartphone probably in the world. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but yes, he
Mm.
is, in my opinion, a futurist, a living legend, and I have a feeling he can still contribute to what Apple has to offer in the future, but there will definitely have to be some adjustments in terms of the of what Apple can produce, their products in the future. So,
Mm. I mean, really, Steve Jobs brought Apple as a company from the brink of disaster
yes.
in the early 2000s, and he really rebooted the company as far as giving them a new focus towards consumer electronics, not just towards computers. And that's where they started the whole iPod thing, and everything from there has just been a gradual innovation to the point where this company now is one of I think it's within the top five of like the most productive revenue wise
Yeah.
companies in the world.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I think now is as good a time as any for Steve Jobs to pull out. I mean, he's done an amazing job bringing the company back from from total irrelevance in the early
Yes,
2000s.
yes,
And so I mean, they're in good stead now. And I mean, the guy who's going to be taking over, I think Tim Cook. I mean, he's been around in the company for a while. So I mean, really, the company's still in good hands. Steve Jobs is still going to have a finger in the pie. But yeah, I mean,
yes,
he's an amazing visionary, and he really took a company that was on the brink of disaster to a whole new
yes,
level, and really took them places that I don't think they ever saw themselves going. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
interestingly enough, obviously this was the same company that booted him out a couple of years before, and yeah, I mean, now they'll probably be kissing his feet, but.
Right.
Nevertheless, I mean, Apple's in a great position now,
Yeah.
and it'll be interesting to see what direction they take in the future. I mean, I think Tim Cook is going to be more than able to toe the party line more or less. And it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see what Apple does in the future.
My guess is I think they're going to be just fine. So yes, I mean I wish Steve Jobs, his health wise, I wish him well and his family, and I wish him, continued success both with the company and with with his health. Which I suppose this is a good tie-in to a good tie-in to the second part of a news item that was big, I believe towards the end of August, HP. Now, I have been a big fan of HP for years. I still have two of their computers that are still running after all these years. But I guess they decided to get out of the PC market, or at least that's what their intentions. I don't know about that one, but the biggest news was the HP Touchpad. It hadn't been on the market for what, 30, 40 days?
Yeah,
And they basically had a what's called a fire sale. They went from what from $500 down to 99 and 149. I actually had an opportunity to buy one, the 32 gig for 149 US dollars. I had it in my
nice.
hand, new in a box, and this is a true story. So, and I was thinking, well, do I really need this? No. Do I want it? Yes. But then I was thinking, okay, I have plenty of gadgets. I have, desktops, laptops. I have an Xbox 360. I just purchased a flip camcorder, a bunch of other items. So I told myself, you know what? What do I really need? And I really needed a new cell phone. And I just ordered my very first Android world phone, which is both CDMA and GSM technology. So one of these days, when me and IG do a live broadcast from Australia, my phone is going to work. But until that day, yeah, the HP Touchpad, I wound up not buying it. And you know what? I don't have any regrets. It is still a good deal if you can find it, certainly. But that here's the thing. We talked about Apple and the brilliance of Steve Jobs and their products, excellent products, the whole thing of what the market or what the people want, timing and all this. These are my thoughts on the HP Touchpad, at least how I see it as a consumer. They came out with a tablet, and I'm assuming when they marketed it, this has WebOS, so what's a touchpad? Well, it's a tablet, something like an iPad. Now, my thinking as a, Joe Schmo consumer is, well, if this is like an iPad, why don't I just buy an iPad? But companies today, or at least HP and Microsoft in the past, when they come out with a new product to compete with Apple, such as the brilliance of Steve Jobs, when they come out with a product really to compete with Apple, you have to be, in my opinion, you have to be unique. You have to have a product that is special, that is different, to have the consumer en masse say, you know what, this is better than the iPad. Why should I get an iPad? But to come out with a product or products to compete with the iPad, I think it's the wrong way of thinking. Here's a quick example. I'm going to come out with the Toss Today touchpad per se. I mean, I'm just dreaming here, but let's say I'm coming out with a Toss Today Touchpad tablet. Okay, well, iPad is king, so what do I have to do? Well, would it be nice to have a more user-friendly touchpad? For example, how about a user-friendly battery? Hey, you buy this and your battery dies in a year. You see in the back here, there's like a little switch, a little door. You just hit that switch and that battery slides out. And you can buy a battery, we'll say, for 60 US dollars or 90 US dollar, 90 US dollars, depending on the capacity of the battery. Slide it right in, and you're good to go. Now, in my opinion, I have something that iPad does not. How about, just off the top of my head, high definition recording? That the iPad, I don't think the iPad has, but mine does. Hey, would you want that? And to top it all off, I have this plus three more features for $100 less. Do you think that tablet has a chance against iPad? I would think so, and probably may sell more, but HP Touchpad with the WebOS, I mean, it's just another tablet. Now, I don't know if the lackluster sales or the lack of interest warranted HP just dropping it or getting out of the business altogether. But that's how I see it as a consumer. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on
Mm.
that, but that's something I really did not see coming. But Apple, it seems like it's kicking everybody else's butt. So,
Mm. I mean, really, at the end of the day, HP's touchpad, I mean, it was a great idea, and I mean, earlier in the year, they had said that they were wanting to develop WebOS to the point where they were putting it on printers, tablets, and even their computers. They were really trying to get behind WebOS and take it places it hadn't been before.
yes.
But I mean, the thing was that, I mean, from my viewpoint, I mean, Apple observe Apple, they're a very committed company. They get behind one thing, and because of the fact they've nailed down the consumer market so well, they know
Yes.
what they're doing as far as what
Yes.
people want, and then they
Oh,
can just develop something and take it places. So
yeah.
they
Yeah.
started out with the iPod Touch and
Oh,
then
yeah.
the iPhone, which was just built off the next thing, and then take it all the way up to the iPad. As soon
Yes.
as the hardware was there at a right price point, you could bring together a really nice suite of products. Whereas with HP, what I mean, this really reeks to me of just being uncommitted. And I mean, the
Yes.
idea of dabbling in a line in a product line, but never really committing to it, and then just pulling out at the drop of a hat. I mean, that's disconcerting, especially as a consumer. I
Yeah.
mean, if you actually buy one of these things. If you bought an HP touchpad for $500 when they were
Yes.
first there,
Yeah.
because you liked what HP was doing with WebOS,
Right.
you appreciated what they were doing with the system and how it ties into the enterprise much better than the
Right.
iPad does. And then to have HP completely drop it altogether, I mean, it leaves you hanging as a consumer. So,
Yeah, I mean, the market is so competitive, and people, consumers, I guess for lack of a better word, have been trained to buy Apple. Buy the iPad because it's the best. Buy the iPhone. Because it's the best. Well, not anymore, at least not in my opinion. But I don't know if, I mean, once again, if I'm a consumer, let's say I know nothing about computers. I'm not in this business, okay? And I'm shopping, and I've heard about the iPad, but it's a little pricey. I don't like to be locked in, to the iTunes and the closed source, software. I want a choice. Well, once again, if there is a tablet or tablets out there that have features, certain features, like the battery, changing the battery, something simple as that, or something else that the iPad does not have, maybe at a reduced cost, I think that can sell. But, you know, they say timing is everything. And maybe 5 years ago, maybe HP with the WebOS may have had a better chance. But Apple so far right now is so entrenched and locked in with what people perceive as being the best. No question, the iPad is a great product, but really, as far as tablets go, what is the competitor to the iPad at this point? I can't think of one. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few Android ones floating about. I think the Acer Iconia has been dubbed the iPad killer as far as Android tablets are concerned. But
Okay.
the thing is that this, I mean, the very fact that obviously you hadn't heard of it, it just goes to show. I mean,
Yeah.
Apple as a company and iPad, they are very good at promoting their products, and I mean, their
Yes.
marketing crew is
Yes.
more than half of their success. I mean, even the presentations that Steve Jobs does every year of this is the new product. I mean, that grabs the media's attention like no tomorrow, and those are the products that people are then chasing for the whole rest of the year. So,
Yeah.
although Acer, HP, Dell, Asus, or whatever other tech company is out there, they put out tablets, and a lot of them are actually very good products, which I'll mention about an Asus one in a minute. But
Okay.
they just don't get the mind share. They don't get into people's brains. They don't the people don't see them. They don't hear about
Yes.
them,
Right. Right.
and they pretty much just fall off into a niche market of those who are specifically looking for an
Yeah.
Android tablet or something similar.
Yeah. I guess to add insult to injury or something like that, but there was a news report I read about a week, 2 weeks ago that according to HP, they were not thrilled but surprised at their response that all their tablets sold out. That believe it or not, they're going to manufacture more to meet consumer demand. And but like, you son of a what? Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, but it
Well, it just goes to show people are willing to buy anything if it's at the right price point.
that, that's the key. People were not impressed, either didn't, didn't know or were not impressed with the WebOS. I mean, I did get a chance to play with a demo version of the HP Touchpad WebOS. I mean, it seemed okay. Was it like, wow, look at this? I wasn't wowed by it, but it was okay. Now, HP
Mm.
is going to try to meet consumer demand by the end of October to ship out a whole bunch of HP touchpads. And I'm like, couldn't you think of this before? But here's the insult, rubbing salt to the wound. Apparently, it cost HP labor materials 300 and some dollars to produce something called a touchpad. And they're going to sell each one, I'm assuming, at the reduced cost of either 99 or 149. Hey, makes perfect sense to me, sure. I don't understand it. I don't get it. If the touchpad had had Android, or better still, how about this? What if it had dual boot capabilities? Hey, here's an HP touchpad. Okay? It's something like an iPad, but we think it's better. Number one, it's priced $100 less. It's just as fast, but you can dual boot. You can try WebOS or you can try Android. All you do is reboot, touch the OS of your choice, and if you don't like it, you have 30 days for a full refund. I think that would have worked from a consumer standpoint, but yes, they're going to produce more to meet consumer demand, apparently to lose money. So there you go.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's not bad news for me. I mean,
Right.
my story goes that I found it on my news feeds about a day into it, and so I went down to the local retailer to pick one up, and basically they said, "Wow, no, they were gone yesterday within the first 2 hours. We were
Yeah.
told that we weren't allowed to sell them anymore. Then right at the last second, we get a call from the head office saying, yes, they're going out for $99 or 149."
Right. Right.
And there was a whole queue of people wanting them. So the staff just said, "All right, which one of you staff want one, and we'll
Right.
put one aside." And but I mean, these guys, most of these guys, because of the fact they're nerds and they're just
Right.
wanting a good gadget, they end up
Yes.
loading Android on it anyway.
Oh,
So I
sure.
mean, you really, at the end of the day, you end up with a $500, $600 tablet with Android on it.
Yes.
For a very sweet price point. So I mean, if they come around again, I'm still going to think about getting one because
Yeah.
at the moment I just have a 17-inch laptop, and that's not really something I like to cart around all day. So
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. But yeah, I mean, the thing was that the touchpads were a little lackluster hardware specs wise, and in order to topple something like the iPad, people
Yes.
will get behind a system as long as the hardware and the system work really well together. And of course, we all know Apple's king at that. But
Yes.
I mean, HP had the same opportunity. They were manufacturing the hardware and they had developed the software. But the thing was that the hardware was just not up to scratch with what iPad has offered. And even if people were willing to pay a bit more for it,
Right.
it was slightly more powerful. It had
Yeah.
nicer graphics and things like
Yes.
that. So, it's six and one half
Yeah.
dozen of the other. But
Yeah, yeah, now that you mention it, when I was playing with the demo, it did seem like it didn't seem quite as zippy, as responsive as an iPad. Not much, but it was noticeable. So I guess you noticed that too with with the
yeah,
touchpad.
yeah.
Okay. But yeah, of course, sure, for 99 and 149, not a problem. But let's say they would have came out with these 2 months ago with an Android. I mean like OS. I mean, what's the latest one? Gingerbread or and let's say for 249.99, that probably may have sold. But
Yeah,
I
that would have sold.
guess, yeah. So, look, I don't know where HP's corporate heads are at, but it's obviously not
Somebody
where.
missed a memo somewhere. I tell you, there's
Oh
something
man,
there's something strange going on.
that's bizarre. I mean, I usually, once a day go to the Wall Street, news. There's a website called MarketWatch.com, which is, just great to catch up on the news. And there have been like, editorials thinking, the CEO HP just doesn't have a clue, or it doesn't look good, for a company that really was at the top of the consumer market in terms of what they did, which is really PCs. But I don't know what the future holds for HP, but it doesn't look good. Okay, let's move on to the next news item. And this is an example of a company uh, doing it right. The last month, Google bought out Motorola Mobility for, I forget, $12 billion, something like that. Well, it makes
Yes.
sense. The only true competitor, and I think it's better, in my opinion, but the only true competitor to the iPhone are the Android phones. In fact, I just ordered my very first Android phone. I use Sprint here in the States. And last year, I believe one of the top selling phones on the market was the HTC Evo. It sold like hotcakes. I played with it. Two of my friends just bought one. I was going to buy one, but you know what? I want to be different. So I ordered a Motorola 4G Photon. And for what I understand, it's just as good as the new Evo, the 3D version. Hoping to get it here sometime this week and maybe do an unboxing, my very first unboxing review. But last year, the Evo with Android, there's an example of doing it right that I believe is better than the iPhone. Well, why do you say that? User replaceable battery. You can pop in your own micro SD card. When you plug it into your computer to transfer videos or pictures. It's plug and play. You won't get the pop-up or the instructions like I did on my used iPhone 3G, where if I wanted to download a free app, I had to sign up to iTunes or whatever it is and go through 62 pages for a free app. You won't have to do that with any Android phone, as far as I know. I believe all you need is a Gmail account and you're good to go. But there's an example of a company, in this case, I guess it would be HTC and or Sprint, getting it right. They came out with the phone last year, the HTC Evo, that sold at the right sold the right price. It was reliable. It still is, and I guess the 3D is selling well also. But again, that ties into what we talked about, trying to compete with Apple. That's a product, getting a product designed, building it, and having the specs and the foresight to do it right. Now, as far as Google buying mobility, Motorola, I guess they wanted most of their, or like all of their patents so they can expand on the Android OS. How do you see it?
Yeah, incredibly smart move by Google. I mean, everybody knew that they had surplus cash lying around, and they were wondering where they were going to throw it. And honestly, with all the patents that various companies had been, I mean, especially Apple had been chasing Google for either for Android or even on the hardware side, they were chasing, Samsung and HTC. I mean, I think it's great that now Google has that patent portfolio with them. So basically, they can just go nuts on their
Oh
Android and
yeah,
make it the best possible user
yes,
experience, and they're going to have all their eggs in their own basket.
yes,
So I mean, that was a really good move by Google,
yes.
and I mean, I think it was a great thing for Motorola as well because honestly, I mean, Motorola isn't as prominent as what it was before the iPhone. It was the Motorola Razrs. They were seriously everywhere.
Oh yeah,
The Motorola flip phones, they were king of the mobile world.
yes,
And nowadays, I mean, Motorola's still around and kicking, but
yes,
it sure isn't as big as what it used to be. But I think, now that
yes.
Google's got it under its wing, so to speak, I think they're really going to go places. So
Yeah, you mentioned the eraser. I still have an old eraser that I just, keep around for old time's sake. But really, as far as Motorola goes, since the razor, which was a big thing, and I think that was 1 or 2 years before the iPhone, maybe I can't quite remember, which was big back then for the razor. But really, since the razor, what has Motorola put out that we can go, hey, that's cool? Really, until the Photon, which I've heard a lot of good things about, really nothing in my opinion.
mm,
But hopefully when I get this phone, and if I don't like it, I can go back and exchange it for the Evo. That's my second choice. But they say this Photon is one of the flagship phones for the Android market and one of the best phones for the Sprint network. We shall see. When I get it soon, I promise I will do an unboxing, do a test, and for those viewers and listeners who listen to me, I call it as I see it, good and bad. And if I don't like the phone or it doesn't, live up to specs, I will exchange it for the Evo, which I know is a good phone. But I wanted to be different
yeah.
than my friends, so what the heck? I'll try the Photon. So yeah.
Android nowadays is I think it's got like 47% of the mobile market share. So I
Oh
mean
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they've been going up and up, and they're definitely the best selling phone worldwide, like as far as system is concerned. Obviously
Yes.
that's spread over, probably hundreds of models of phones. But I mean just in the last year I know four people that have bought Android phones, myself included. I only just
Okay.
got one last month and I got a Samsung Galaxy S,
Okay.
and which is a really sweet phone. I mean, there's no knocking them there. It's actually a very nice device. It's very
Nice.
comparable to iPhone 4, iPhone 3GS.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that people like you and me are getting on the Android bandwagon as
Oh
well. I
yeah.
mean, Android's got to be doing something right here. So yeah, I mean, it's been a very good experience thus far.
That was going to be my next question before we go into the question and answer. What phone do you have? And you have an Android phone, so there you go. Are you happy with it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before that, I just had like a Nokia E series
Okay.
phone, which is more it is a smartphone, but of course it's Symbian, so I mean it's pretty kind
Okay.
of Spartan in its appearance. But yeah, the Galaxy S is a very nice phone. They're
Okay.
obviously taking a lot of cues from iPhone, and
Yes.
that's why Apple's been trying to sue the pants off Samsung ever since. But it's a very nice
The
phone. So
Where would the corporate world be without lawsuits, 24-hour lawsuits? But oh well. Okay. Unless you have something else to add on this, let's move on to the some of the questions that I've gotten, and maybe both of us can help figure out an answer. What do you say?
no worries, go for it.
Okay, let me go to my messages here. Let's see. There was one here that I think it's okay. Here's one. Let's see, from Crossover 188. If you're listening, Crossover, hello. All right, question. Hey man, can you please give me some tips on how to safely dual boot Win 7 and Ubuntu? I tried it once and my Win 7 got unbootable. I'm assuming when he means unbootable that the grub didn't load or the MBR got trashed or something like that. So, do you want to take this first and then I'll give you my opinion?
Yeah, sure. Yes, dual booting is sometimes a bit of a problem. It is much safer than what it used to be, but generally speaking, what I've found to be something that's very helpful to do is before you dual boot, especially because of the fact that Ubuntu's installer handles shrinking and repartitioning the hard drive, by itself, it's always a good idea to defragment your Windows hard drive before you install Ubuntu. The reason being is because sometimes there can be just a rogue sector of files just hanging on the extremities of the hard drive, on the outer rim, if you will, that don't really need to be there. And so when Ubuntu sees how much free space it has and tries to shrink, that written sector, and it won't be able to go anywhere. So it'll continue to install the operating system just fine. But what you'll often find is that then the Windows side of things is unbootable because the hard drive has been all messed up in the Windows brain. So really, it is a very good
Okay.
idea to defragment the hard drive
Yes.
before you install Ubuntu. And generally speaking, after that, it should handle itself okay. At least that's been my experience.
Okay. I totally agree with that. That was going to be my very first way of doing it. And of course, it wouldn't hurt to, run a virus scan to make sure that the system is clean. Win 7 is totally clean. How I do it, if I'm going to install, a brand new version of Ubuntu, Linux Mint, or Zorin or whatever, I will run a defrag. I will run a virus scan, maybe even run a spy scan. There are different types of software for each, and not what I've noticed with scanners. There doesn't seem to be one that completely does it all. So having different types of scanners, to run malware scans is not a bad idea. So defrag, okay, run a malware scan or scans. I'll go to the website. Let's say I want to download Linux Mint 12, which is not out yet. I will pick either 32-bit or 64-bit, download the file. Make sure that the file is not corrupt. You need to check the MD5. I think it's called a hash mark or the hash, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Check and see that that code, those numbers match. If they do not match, do not burn the CD or DVD. You will have problems. Even if it installs, you will run into problems. But if the numbers don't match, delete it, try it again. If the numbers match, grab your blank disk, make sure that the disk is not scratched or smudged or has some goo on it or whatever. Make sure it's totally clean. Burn your disk. Burn it at a slower speed than what the computer, let's say your desktop CD DVD drive has a maximum speed of 40. I would go down to 30 just to be safe, just to prevent any kind of possible errors in the writing process. At least that's how I do it. I burn my DVD. I reboot to my CD or DVD, and the way I install it, I like a friendly installer. I choose the option where it says install next to or install alongside Windows XP or Windows 7. That's how I do it, and it should work. I don't believe in 100%, but we'll say maybe 99%. That that is how I do it, and it should work for listeners out there who want to try, whether it be Ubuntu, Linux, or Zorin, because I think the install process is the same. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the user-friendly installer is the same. But that's how I do it, and I have not run into problems. Now, if you do, and the grub is trash, and you cannot load or boot into Win, I have my backup disks to repair or to just frankly reinstall the entire Win OS and then either try it again or try something else. But really, back up everything, whether you're installing just Linux or just Windows, back up everything first, just in case, because no OS is perfect. It's that simple. And anyway, that's what works for me. So,
Yep, and that's a very good method to go by.
okay. Let's move on to question number 2. This is from Tech Freak 94. This one I actually sent him one or two solutions. They didn't work, so this is more of a Linux issue. Okay. I'll just read the comment. Hi, Toss. Today I once talked to you about a power management problem in Ubuntu under my old account, and I am not sure if it worked for you or not. I think I do recall what he sent me, and yes, TechFreak94 did work. Thank you. Okay, I wondering if I could inquire your help on a problem I have found with Ubuntu and its output through VGA on a laptop. In Windows 7, it properly reaches its max resolution of 1366 by 768 on my HD TV. In Ubuntu, it also says that it is pushing that resolution, but my TV only receives 1024 by 768. I was wondering if you had any fix. I have tried many different commands and programs, no available. Thanks in advance. The podcasts are quite good. Well, we thank you very much. I don't have a solution. I thought I did. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have had issues as well with outputting to external monitors slash TVs, especially with Ubuntu 11.04. I'm not sure whether it's just an issue with Xorg or what the deal is, but I found that the best solution is just to, if you're not already using their proprietary drivers, to try using them. So, I mean, apart from that, I can't,
Yeah,
I hit a brick wall as well. So,
yeah. I would imagine that he's tried the proprietary drivers. He said he's tried different commands. I'm assuming the terminal command, which I don't like to try and do stuff. So, it sounds like Tech Freak 94, if you're listening, it sounds like you know what you're doing. I have noticed by through trying many different types of Linux-based OSs, video drivers, video, performance can vary greatly. To me, it's not quite on par with Windows, at least not yet. But with my desktop, I forget if I have an NVIDIA or an ATI, but the update manager popped up and said there was an update, or I had to install a proprietary driver for my desktop, and it seemed to work. But yeah, like IG was saying, your mileage or your performance can vary greatly with video cards, video drivers. Hopefully, sometime in the future that may change. But honestly, I'm sorry we don't have a better answer for you. We tried, but video can vary. That's the best answer that we can offer you. But I do thank you for the question. Do you have something else to say on that issue, or shall we leave it there?
yeah, look, I think we're going to have to probably leave it there.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, video drivers are just difficult, I think. So, there's not a whole lot you can do as far as,
right,
unless you manually muck around with Xorg and you really want to get hardcore about it, then,
right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your questions. You're always welcome to ask your questions on the Total OS Today channel on the Total OS Today website, and I'm sure IG, can take questions and comments. I don't think you mind, when you have the time to
No,
answer them.
bring them on.
Okay. So yeah, once again, thank you to all the listeners out there who are supporting both the Total OS Today channel and the Infinitely Galactic channel. We definitely do appreciate your support, your thoughts, and your comments. Maybe we'll do a TosCast just on the various comments on the various videos that we have received on each of our respective channels. But at this point, I would like to say thank you, and let me transfer the mic once again to Infinitely Galactic.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, these are all pretty interesting topics that we've been talking about. But I think if we can throw in a few news items every now and again and just have a bit of discussion around those, that'll probably be good for our respective channels. As yeah, I mean, we both do a fair bit of Linux stuff on our channel, so just throwing in some variety from what's going on in the tech world is always fun. But yeah, definitely keep questions and comments coming because it definitely gives us stuff to talk about. And yeah, and we'll try to help out where we can. Obviously, we don't have bucket loads of experience, but we can always try. So yeah, thanks again for having me on the show, and look forward to doing the next one.
Yes, and once again, thank you from Total OS Today from the United States. And as I always like to say, stay tuned because we will catch you sometime in the future. Bye bye.